Hello and welcome to the Leveraging AI podcast, the podcast that shares practical, ethical ways to leverage AI to improve efficiency, grow your business, and advance your career. This is Isar Metis, your host, and we have a really awesome episode for you today. And me, as a data geek, I'm really excited about it personally. But every business has multiple data points, and being able to pull the data from all these different points and actually identify deviations from what expected and finding reasons for these deviations and diving into specific unique events and analyzing what's happening in them is one of the most critical aspects of driving a successful business. Now, that being said, doing that, especially doing that consistency and at scale, is not easy. You either need somebody in your company who is a data analyst or at least somebody who is an Excel whiz in order to do this. And even then, doing it consistently and at scale is not easy. So that's why bigger companies have departments or teams that doing business intelligence, and they invest a lot of money in really sophisticated and advanced BI platforms. And that enables them to do some magic, but most companies do not have the budget or the right people or resources to do that. The good news, AI enables to do it amazingly well. AI is really, really good at analyzing data and finding needles in haystacks in really big chunks of data. And you can do it with almost no technical skills and almost for free, which is a huge benefit. So, in today's episode, we're going to teach you exactly how you can set up something like this in your business, how you can go to data sources that you have access to, and how you can build the right processes around them so AI can help you analyze the data, find what's good, bad, and ugly, so you can make informed business decisions so you can grow your business in the most effective way. And how you can do this while at the end of the process, it just sends you an email with the results on whatever cadence you want without you having to go and doing the query on your own every single time. Now, as I mentioned, I think that being able to make data driven decisions as the way to drive a business is maybe the most critical aspect of making the right decisions. Executing them is a whole other problem, but making the right decisions to drive your business in the right direction. And so, as a data geek myself, I'm very excited about this. And to guide us through this process today, we have Keith Moehring. And Keith has been the CEO of L2 Digital, which is a marketing and sales agency in the B2B space. He's been running it for 6 years. But before that, he was the VP of growth at PR 2020, which is another agency he's been at driving growth, both of them in the Cleveland area. By the way, PR 2020 has some other AI ninjas like Paul Reutzer and Michael Putt, which you may know if you listen to podcasts or in the AI space. But Keith has been using AI combined with automation tools for a while. And every time I see what he does, it blows my mind on how effective the stuff that he builds is. And so he brings to the table 20 years of experience of running businesses. And he uses his AI and automation knowledge to grow the business, which is what makes it more interesting. It's just not a geeky exercise in building automation. It actually drives business value. And as somebody who's A, an AI geek, B, a data geek, and C, somebody who started and grow companies, this is really the core of what I love doing. And so I'm personally very, very excited to welcome Keith to the show. Keith, welcome to Leveraging AI. In the next few years, AI technology will change our world dramatically. Whether you are a business executive trying to catapult your business forward, or just somebody who refuses to be left behind and want to advance your career, this is the show for you. I'm your host, Isar Metis, a serial entrepreneur and an AI enthusiast. You'll hear invaluable practical tips from innovative business leaders, AI practitioners, and some of the brightest AI minds in our world today on how you can leverage AI in ethical ways to advance your career and grow your business.
Thank you very much for having me and for the intro and for calling me a geek several times. I love it. So that's awesome.
I'm again, I was very genuine. I
Oh yeah.
think this is going to be really fun, and I'm looking forward to see what you prepared for us. So, stage is yours.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Yeah, and I think the we're going to kind of talk through is how to approach building these AI automations in a way that can surface usable insights out of data. So I'll give you an example. So every week, every Monday, I get an email in my inbox. In that email, there's kind of the main website KPIs, sessions, users, that kind of thing. It breaks down channel performance, how each channel did it go up or did it go down? And then overall, is the site up or down? But then it goes a level deeper. So it identifies the top 1 to 2 to 3 channels that were the biggest reason that we're up or that we're down. And then in each of those channels, it goes in and dives deeper. So, channel, okay, then what source details do we get? And then for each of those sources that had the biggest change, landing pages. And then the email summarizes all of that. It says, okay, here are some of the insights that we found based on the data of what we're seeing. And then in that same email for that specific channel, it'll also recommend next steps. So if it's like organic search, you're going to want to write these 3 pieces of content, update this other piece of content. Social media, here's some posts to share based on what seems to be getting the most engagement. This thing is awesome. Now, I I've done these types of reporting for years. And when I would do this manually, the process of building these reports, we're talking about 2 hours to pull the data, process data, check it, balance it, do the calculations. Then another 2 hours to sit there and like write up the whole thing, edit it, polish it up. And then that probably involves at least 2 to 3 people, someone else to check it, sanity check, kind of all that fun stuff. And all for what? I mean, we're talking about doing this weekly. You're not unearthing mind-blowing revelations every time you do this. It's maybe 1 or 2 small insights that can help incrementally improve overall performance. But with all the data we have available, with all the tools that can connect back and forth, we're expected to make these decisions using this data. And so uh, the challenge then comes, how much time is worth your time, and then what can we do to automate some of this process? And thanks to AI and automation, that report I get every Monday, I don't do anything. All I do is read it Monday morning. It pulls the data, it processes it the exact way I want to process. It uses AI to understand what's going on, generates the report, and sends it off into my inbox. So,
Amazing. I'll add one thing again, just to generalize it for those of you who are not in the marketing space. I'm doing a workshop tomorrow for a pretty large group of financial analysts from a large international corporation. They do financial analysis of large international corporations. So they have these really ugly big Excels that have 40 columns uh, and with thousands or tens of thousands of rows of cost analysis per their projects because they have people in multiple locations with multiple price points in multiple roles working on multiple components of the project. So every time a person somewhere does a work, it adds a line to that Excel that says he is from this location, he has these roles, these capabilities, he's working under that project on these 2 products under et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Like, so there's again multiple columns for every time a work gets done. And then somehow you got to figure out, are we ahead of budget or behind budget, and where are we behind budget and why, and stuff like that. And again, it's impossible for, it's not impossible, but you have a team of people sitting there doing pivot tables and different macros and different analysis to try to figure out, first of all, where is the deviation, and second, like Keith said, so what are the recommendations? Okay, what should I do next? and and now AI knows how to just do these things. And does it replace the human? Probably not, because you still want to read it and decide what you want to do as far as the taking action on the business. But analyzing the data and getting the report, you can apply this to any aspect of your business, from finance, marketing, sales, customer service, HR, etc. Wherever you have data, you can do the same process. And that's why I love where Keith is taking this, because we're going to show you the how to think about this and how to build this, and not just, okay, here's an automation that does marketing data analysis.
Mhm. Yeah, and I totally agree. And the fun part about so AI, these tools are mind-blowing, amazing. Uh, but they do have their limitations, especially when it comes to what they can connect to, what they know to go get, context and all that, which is why I'm so bullish on AI plus automation. So with the automation tools, now you have the ability to programmatically determine exactly what you want to go get and bring back. And then you layer that in with some additional context to the AI to then do what it does best. And so what we're going to walk through today is kind of like the four-step process that when we attack these different projects, like what we think about and how we go step by step through them to make sure that we're covering all the bases and everything's thought through and we're using AI to its the max potential.
Okay, sounds awesome.
Yeah. So I guess the kind of real quick high level, four main steps when you're approaching any of these AI automation projects. The first one is to define approach. So define your approach. So think about it in terms of the way you go about doing something or your thought process behind why you approach generating content this way or how you go about pulling data specifically and looking at the metrics. So it's your overarching set of principles and how something should be done. And then kind of the next step, which we'll get into, is the detailed process. This is the step-by-step walkthrough on exactly how this stuff works. And then from there, once you have that process kind of mapped out, how do we layer AI on top of it to do what it does best? And then you get into, okay, now that we know what the process is, we know where AI is, how do we build the actual automation itself? And I'll kind of walk you through an example of how this analytics assistant that I've built, how this whole thing works. So,
Awesome.
right.
Let's
Cool.
dive in.
Perfect. Okay, so in terms of, let's start with the approach. So when I'm thinking about an approach for the analytics assistant, there are really four main things that we look at, and I've done, and again, done these reports for 20 years now. And the process to surface the most tangible insights I have fairly well, or the approach I have pretty well defined. So there's really four main steps here. The first one is just to kind of give you an overall example of how to think about this. So with analytics, and the first one is to look at how much the change actually was. So we don't want to look at the top level metric. We don't want to and just look at that percentage of how much it went up or down. We want the actual number of how much it increased or decreased. So it's the diff. A perfect example of this is so if you go to a Cavaliers game, I'm from Cleveland. Up on the scoreboard, they have one team score, other team score, how much time is left, what quarter it is. But right in the middle, they have a number. It's called the diff. And it's either like plus 10, plus 2, minus 3. It's the difference between the Cav score and the opponent score. At the end of the day, if that number has a plus in front of it, everything's good. If it has a minus, it's bad. That one number is key, is critical to the whole thing. And really, what we're trying to do to uncover the most valuable insights with analytics is to uncover why that number is up or down the way it is. And so that's why, and we'll get into when I show kind of the automation, how that works. That's really a lot of what the automation is designed to do is to pull out that type of information. Another kind of approach principle that we have is five whys. So if you've ever read like the Toyota Way, I think is where I saw it. They have this five whys philosophy where you continue to ask why five times to ultimately get like the root cause of the problem. So the if you do that, if you look at it from an analytics perspective, traffic's up. Okay, why? Organic search is up. Okay, why is organic search up? Well, Google specifically is up. Okay, why is Google up? Well, traffic to the blog is up. And then you kind of work your way down to get something very tangible and very specific. That's where the real insights lie, is buried in the why. So having a process to unearth that level of detail is very important to this whole process thing. The other side of it too, I have two children, and they're now 9 and 11. And even when they were kids, like you'd walk into a room, one would be on the floor crying, and then you'd say, "Okay, why are you on the floor crying?" And then you'd get some sort of explanation of how it was the other one's fault, and she did this, she did this, she did this. And then as the uh, unbiased judge in this situation. I have to go talk to the other one. And turns out her story, while there are some parallels, is wildly different. They're both describing the same event. So the third approach, the kind of the principle we have is like there are multiple sources of truth for different channels. Perfect example with analytics is Google Analytics. Oh, I'm sorry, with analytics, Google Analytics 4 can give you organic search performance. It can show you how people or organic search traffic got to the site, what they did on it, what pages they viewed. But there is also Google Search Console, which can show you the other side of that same story, where how many, what your rankings are, average position, impressions, clicks, all that kind of stuff. You marry those two together, and now you've got something very, very tangible that you can use with the reporting. So when there are opportunities to layer different technologies on top of each other to combine the data, that becomes very, very powerful. And then the fourth and kind of the other one that's really very useful when it comes to analytics reporting is context. Context matters a ton. The example for one of the sites that I manage, it's a golf live scoring system, and they get a lot of traffic, golf related traffic. Well, on I think it was April 13th of 2025, there was this enormous spike in in traffic on the site. You're like, what was going on? Like, why did this happen? Now we're trying to analyze the data, see what was going on, and nothing was lining up. Well, that was also the same day that Rory McIlroy won the Masters. So there was this huge, enormous spike in interest in golf that day that we couldn't do anything to replicate with marketing. But it's context. You need it to kind of level out the story. Another good example is a lot of the sites that I manage, the last week of December, traffic disappears. In most cases, they're B2B service companies because everyone's on vacation. That context matters. Otherwise, like you give that to the AI tool, it's going to go deep on what happened and may come up with insights that aren't really relevant because there's no traffic that week.
Yeah.
So it's like looking at it from a holistic view of how do you approach this problem? How do you need to go about it to get the outcome you're looking for? That's really the goal of the approach process, and taking time to really think it all through is a very, very valuable first step.
Yeah, I love what you're saying. I want to add a few small nuggets. One, I think, is the most critical thing is at the end of the day, you don't need data for the data. You need data that will support business decisions, right? So having more data doesn't necessarily help. Having the right data and the right outcome and the right analysis is what helps. So you need to figure out what business decisions you want to make and what data will help you or what analysis will help you make those decisions. The other thing, and you touched about it a lot, knowing what happened doesn't help. You need to know why it happened.
Mhm.
And because knowing what happened is great. I'm like, okay, traffic is up, traffic is down, sales are up, sales are down, customers are happy, customers are not. Okay, but in order to actually change something in your business, you need to know why. And to need to know
Yes.
why, there's usually two ways to do this. One is to add more layers of quantitative data, which is what Keith is talking about, in order to get additional layers of views, and then you're speculating less and basing your results on real data more. The other option, which is maybe less relevant in this example, but is extremely relevant in many examples, is getting qualitative data like actual customer reviews, like actual summaries of meetings with clients, like which is stuff that before AI we couldn't analyze. It was literally impossible because you couldn't go through 3,700 reviews and make sense in them. Now you can. And so qualitative data is an extremely valuable tool to know why that you couldn't analyze previously and you can analyze right now. And then the last thing that Keith said as an afterthought, but is mind blowing when it comes to capabilities that we didn't have before, is the ability to cross pollinate siloed data from 3 or 4 different sources with one AI tool to make sense in them. So think about most of the tools you have. ERP, CRM, marketing platform, HR platform have their own little analytics environment. They have reports, they have dashboards, but it tells you what happens in that siloed universe. If you want to know what happened to a specific channel based on the sales in that channel, combined with the customer reviews from that channel, combined with the inventory that goes to that, there's no way to do this. But AI, if you give it access to all the data sources, is very good at doing this and crossing the data and knowing that, which again is a huge benefit of doing some of the stuff that Keith is going to show us.
Mhm. For sure. Yeah. And that's kind of painting the full picture. And I think you outlined it perfectly. That was exactly what the goal with that was, is like, it's all about qualitative, quantitative, marrying the technology together, painting a full picture. The more context you give these AI tools, the stronger the outcome. And so combined with all of that, you're giving it some very specific system prompts. And this is where these reports become extremely valuable, and require absolutely, like in my case, zero time, except for to read it and to implement whatever the recommendations are. So step two of this whole process, we are approaching the AI and automation projects, is we've got the approach. Now we need to translate that into a process. And the process is, if we're going to define it, is the step by step, the very minute kind of details, one after another, as if you were to teach this process. You're going to hand this entire process over to some brand new intern who's never had a job before. So think about it in those types of specificity terms. So I like to give you just kind of a very high level, quick example of this, where if I was to do this for like the analytics reports, I would first have to log into Google Analytics, pull up a report, and pull the session number for the current time frame. Then we have to calculate the diff on that. So I'm going to go in and pull that session data for the previous time frame. And then I'm going to calculate that diff. And then I've got the change, but now I need to understand why at a next level, kind of the first why. So now I'm going to go back into Google Search or search Google Analytics. And then I'm going to pull source data. And then I'm going to do the same thing for the compare. I'm going to calculate my diff. Then the other next why. You're going landing page data, step by step by step. And then at the end of that, we've got all this Google Analytics data. Well, now we have to go and kind of summarize exactly what's going on there. And so we're going to write down that summary. And then, okay, we've got Google Analytics 4 data. Now let's take Google Search Console. We're going to do the same exact process, step by step by step. And then once I've got that summary written down, okay, let's pull in some additional context. Who are we targeting? Let's pull in some persona details. If we have a log of campaign activities and content that we publish, let's pull that context in. Any sort of additional website behavior context we need to layer in, like the drop off at the end of December in traffic. Typically, there's traffic doesn't pick up, sales don't pick up till March because that's when the buying seasons. That kind of context, layer that all into like a document. And so now I've got that paired with my data. Now I can start to really analyze and see what's going on. I've got all the information in front of me. Now I need to analyze it. And then once I've got the analysis, looking at the data, okay, what are the next three things that I need to do? And usually this is like the senior level person is going through and kind of like, okay, based on this, here's what the next three or four things need to be. You can build the AI tools when we get to that stage to be that level smart, that senior level smart, giving that all the context and then having it write out, okay, here are the next three things that we're going to do based on what the data is telling us. So once we got that whole, and ideally that's a list, like it's a bolded list of start here and then this. So you can go all the way through. The third step of this whole process
So
is to,
before you go there,
oh yeah,
one
sorry.
thing, this
Yep.
is basically a really detailed SOP, right? It's
Oh
exactly like you
yes.
said.
Yeah.
This is an SOP for an intern that has never done this work, down to what to click, where to go, what format to open, what to get, where to put it, how to copy, what to paste, what calculation to make. Uh, the easiest way to do that, by the way, is to either yourself or the people who do this, let them do the process, do a screen recording with whatever tool. You can do it in Zoom, you can do it in Loom, you can do it in any other tool that records the screen. Have them narrate what they're doing. Just explain in English. I'm doing this, I'm capturing that, I'm copying it here, I'm pasting it there. Uh, do it 3 times just because you're not going to get it perfect the first time ever. And then take the 3 recordings, drop it into your favorite AI tool to transcribe. And then will do, oh, here's the process. And then you
Mhm.
ask it, do you think there's any open-ended things that you're not sure about how to do this process? And, oh, what about this, and that? It's going to ask you 5 or 6 questions. Either you or whoever does it, let them answer the questions, and you have your SOP. Now you're ready to go to the next step that Keith is going to describe.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. And I do that like the video recording of the process. I must have dozens of those recordings because it's the easiest way to like make sure that everything's covered. And then you're right, the AI tool just feed it into that, and it becomes it's like you don't no additional work. You just layering in some color where it needs to be. So we've got our very detailed step-by-step SOP process doc. The next part of this is to identify where in those steps AI can take over and do some of that work. And I do think it is worth kind of weighing out the pros and cons of what is AI good at versus what is it still potentially struggle with. And so, like when we're talking what AI is good at, it's good at at analysis, as long as the data is kind of structured and well formatted. It's good at writing out report, brainstorming, strategy stuff, consolidating documents into summaries and isolated in or a smaller, more concise documentation. And then there are some things where it's not necessarily, and again, this may be outdated by tomorrow, but there are some parts of this that it's just not quite perfect at yet. Um, like for example, advanced processing of data within like an unstructured format. So, for example, I can pull out a Google Sheet with all these rows and all this session data and pull the same thing for the previous time period. And I can feed both into analytics and have it compare and contrast and do the calculations of page differences and then sort it and spit it out on the other end. I don't specifically know exactly how it's doing it, but there is a very specific exact way to that it should be done. And so from a predictability perspective, this is something that's better to be handled like with different types of code. So you can feed both in and process them that way and get the data out through the code, and then you know it's reliably going to be exactly how it should be set up. So that would be one example of I don't think I'd hand the whole data processing thing, if it's an unstructured thing yet, to AI, but I would take whatever that output is, and I would be comfortable handing that off to AI to analyze.
100%. I think it's that trade-off between rigidness and flexibility.
Mm,
And there's cases you want flexibility in a thought process and analysis, and there's cases where then you gotta get 90% accuracy, which is not acceptable. And so you wanna do the rigid stuff as much as possible because it's consistent, and then you want to use the brain where the brain provides value and not risk.
hmm Yeah, that's perfect. So we've got our SOP that's based on our approach, and then we've identified what steps in that whole process is AI ready. So now the next step of this whole thing would be to build the actual integration. And so there are a variety of tools you can choose from. Make and N8N are probably the top two. You can probably Zapier to an extent. I like Make a lot, largely because of how it integrates with different Google properties. It's a little bit simpler. There's a bigger learning curve with N8N than with Make. So if you're just starting out, even just trying out and Make and then maybe graduating up to N8N, N8N does offer a lot more functionality in terms of what it can do and on the technical end of it. So pick your poison. I would say I have most of my stuff built in Make though, largely so clients can easily understand exactly what's going on too. But and so what I can do here is, do you want me to do a quick screen share and kind of
Yeah,
show?
absolutely. Let's dive into N8N, see how what happens behind the curtain of the Wizard of Oz.
Okay, so all right, let me know if you can see that.
Yeah, I can. By the way, for those of you who are driving or doing the dishes or something and you cannot watch the screen right now, We'll explain everything that's on the screen, but those of you who can, if you're on Spotify or on YouTube, then you obviously can watch.
Okay. All right. So here is so this these what is this? Six, seven, eight, eight different scenarios is what Make calls them. These are the different AI automation workflows. I have got eight of these things separated out. They're all specialized. They all do one specific skill very, very well. In other words, I have a automation set up to analyze organic search traffic. I have another one set up to analyze email traffic. I have another one set up to generate the report and send it off at the end of the day. So each of these assistant, like channel level assistants in the email report generator, these are like, consider them as skills. In other words, they have a very specific purpose and they do one thing. They take data, process it in a specific way, and return a predictable output. The thing that ties it all together is what we're calling this the master agent analytics assistant. In other words, what this is designed to do is it does some additional data processing. So the first thing we do is we set up some variables. So current time frame, compare time frame, both start and finish, description of the target audience, description of the company, the website, that kind of thing. We have that all built in because all those other automations are going to use that information when it comes time to call them. So we build them all here so we don't have to update them across all those different other automations. And then what it's going to do is it's going to go through and pull the overall traffic for the current time frame and then the previous time frame. In this case, last week compared to the week before that. And then we're going to do some quick math. Did we go up or did we go down? And then we're going to look at it from a channel perspective. So let's dive into and see and uncover of the channels that drove traffic, which ones were the biggest reason we were up, or then which ones were also the biggest reasons we went down. And then once we get that information, then we feed it into it's called make code, where it allows us to run some Python script. And the idea with this is we feed that channel data into it. And like I mentioned before, it's taking one spreadsheet of data and another spreadsheet of data, comparing it, and ultimately on the other end, returning for us the names of the specific channels that had the biggest effect on why traffic changed. So in other words, direct and organic were the biggest reasons traffic went up. So it's going to call those out. The other thing that this is designed to do is it actually will, if traffic increased by 100 sessions, okay? But we uncover that the top two channels, if you add those up, traffic should have increased by 200 sessions. Well, there was something then on the other end that's probably dragging the overall traffic down. So that's what this code's also designed to do that. Now, here's what I will tell you. I don't know Python code. Like, I'm not a Python coder. I know it enough to read it and to write, like, jot some stuff in. So what I did was I just outlined exactly what I needed this program to do into Google Gemini. I said, I needed to do this. It needs to process this. Here's the sources, blah, blah, blah. And on the other end of it, I got this Python code that then I just had to tweak here or there, and it was good to go. So you don't have to know how to code to do this stuff. You just have to know exactly how it needs to work and then use the AI to help you create that code.
And the same thing, by the way, about troubleshooting. Let's say you run it and then it does kind of what you wanted, but it's not exactly what you wanted. You just go back to, in this particular Gemini or whatever the poison you chose to do the coding and say, hey, this is what's happening, but I wanted to do this instead. And then it will give you a new piece of code and you test it again. And usually within 2 to 3 iterations, it will do exactly what you wanted it to do.
Yeah, yeah. If you can even give it the specific error message,
Yeah.
it'll take it and it'll find exactly where the problem was and fix it from there.
And I will give one more small tip that I started doing in NA10 and in Make. I actually run NA10 or Make uh, in like an agentic browser, so like Comet, and then you open the agentic browser agent on the side and you ask it to write the code and create the code, and it creates it straight into the right box inside of Make an NA10. So you don't need to know anything. It just does it for you, and it sets all the parameters and connects everything correctly. And it just it saves the step of copying and pasting back and forth. And it also sees the screen. So I say, okay, here's like, look at the screen. There's an error message. Go fix it. And then it'll go and fix it. So that makes your life even easier.
Yeah, it's also unnerving, but yeah, for
Yes.
sure. So in this, back to this one. So we've got our overall traffic up or down. We know the channels, and we have specific data for that, and we've identified the top reasons the traffic is up or down. Then we take all of that and feed it into an AI agent. And so the idea with these AI agents is it's almost like you're building a custom GPT, but within Make. So you go in and you give it a kind of a system level instructions. So if I go into here, you give it a overall, here's the system prompt. Here's who you are. Here's your context. Here's your instructions. Here's exactly what you need to do with all of this stuff. And you can feed it in and provide it as much context and detail as you want. And then what's nice with this too is with these agents, you can layer in files with the additional context. So for example, website traffic patterns throughout the year. Put that as a document within the context for background information. Now it can draw on that when it sees something happen within so for example, December, traffic drops off in December. Call that out. And then with that within there too, you also give it tools, or skills. So you're telling it that here are all the scenarios or all the automations that you have access to. And then with each of those, you give it a specific set of instructions on here's when you would use this. And so, like with the organic search one, for example, use this tool only when organic search is a priority channel. This tool analyzes SEO performance from Google Analytics 4 and Google Search Console. So, in other words, here's when to use it, here's what it does. And so, for each of these, I have that instruction built into it. So, that's the whole system prompt. That's the agent as a whole. But then, if I go back into let me go back into the automation itself. I'm also then with it like you give it the actual prompt as part of this conversation. So in other words, that system prompt is you building the custom GPT. This is you interacting with it. And this is where you're going to feed in the specific scenario information. In other words, traffic's up. Here's the breakdown of channels. If happens, also consider and think about this. Here's additional context and variables and details and so on and so forth. So you build all of that into this agent.
By
And
the way,
then,
Gabe, for those of you who don't understand exactly how this works, I'm going to pause for a minute.
oh, sure.
The way Keith connects the dots is in all these automation tools, and Make is not different. You can pull data from all the previous steps. So when Keith is saying when he's chatting with the agent, he's saying, "Hey, traffic is up." How does he know that traffic is up? He doesn't. He say traffic is, and then there's a parameter from one of the previous steps that says whether it's up or down. There's a parameter in one of the previous steps saying which channels are either down or up. So you can use these parameters that gets updated dynamically. So when you're writing the prompt, you're using the parameter. The parameter is called up down. I'm making this up.
Mhm,
But when it's going to say the sentence, it will actually look at the previous steps to know whether it was up or down and will then fill up the sentence correctly. So every time it runs slightly differently, even though you have one prompt, just because you used parameters inside your sentences inside the prompt.
mhm. Yeah, this is like if you know how to code, this is very familiar territory. If you're not familiar with exactly how code works, it is really just you put in a variable, if this, do this, if this, then do that, and then you slot in different information that is previously generated.
Yeah.
So the agent now has all the context it needs. It has the whole instructions that it's been trained on what to do. So now it's going to start running and then it's going to look at the data it was provided and figure out what to do next. And this is where it really is a true agent because it makes the next decision. Now we've given it various tight parameters, but it makes the next decision. And what it's going to do is based on the traffic in the top channels, it's going to go call one of these other scenarios that we've built. So I'm going to open up the organic search version of this. And now this automation really goes through step by step that process we defined earlier. So it's going to go in here and it's going to pull context. It's going to pull information about the persona from our Google Drive. We have a document with the persona detailed in it. It's going to pull that information in. So now I have that available to me throughout the rest of this automation. And then it's going to go through the process of pulling data from Google Analytics, organic search data, current time frame, last time frame, do the math. It's going to go next level down, my first why, source level data, pull current, pull past time frames, do the math, what are the top sources, and then it's going to use that as a filter for the next why. So say Google was the top reason that organic search is up, then it's going to say, okay, what were the top landing pages from Google? And then it's going to compare current and past and do the math on that. And then once we get all of that down and boiled down, now we have a detailed list of, okay, organic search was up, thanks largely to Google, and these 3 landing pages. Now we're going to hand that information off to the first AI part of this specific channel, and it's going to summarize and analyze it. So it's going to look at it. Okay, what does it mean? Dissect it a little bit, summarize what happened, and then we're going to save that information for later. Excuse me. And then we're going to do the same thing, but with Google Search Console. So we're going to go in, pull data, process it, go a level deeper, process that, go another level deeper, all pulling just out of Google Search Console. We're not comparing it or doing anything with Google Analytics yet, because we got to keep it isolated in the channel until we can summarize it in more broader terms that can then be compared and contrasted. So we do that. We use AI again to take all that data, analyze it. What does it mean? Summarize it, and then save that information. And
Again, just to clarify to people, when Keith is saying give it to AI to analyze, it just sends a prompt plus the data to ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude. It doesn't matter. Basically saying, here's what I want you to analyze, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is what I'm trying to figure out. Here's some additional information. Here are the actual pieces of data that I've collected for you to analyze. And then it just analyzes it in the way you defined in the prompt.
Yeah. So like I'll give you a quick example of kind of what the Google Search Console one is like. You give it a role. You're a lead marketing data analyst for X company and put in the company description. Here's your mission. Here's what you're designed to do. Here's all the data you need. Here's your analysis rules. Here's what to think about. Here's how to look at it. Here's what we're trying to come out with. And then here's what your output needs to look like. It needs to have a recap. It needs to have a diagnosis, and then the primary drivers, any other observation, and then some very specific things on what not to return. So very much like how you would use ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever system you're using, but it's all kind of baked into one, and we've refined this over and over and over to make sure that the output is exactly what we are looking for.
Yeah.
So again, there is definitely a level of trial and error with this as you build these. But what's nice is you can read the review report and then jump in and tweak this, tweak that, and then all of a sudden you're starting to get what you really want.
Yeah.
So we've got, in this case, we've got GA4 data, we got Google Search Console data. Now it's time to do the full organic channel analysis. And so same thing here, we're going to send it off to ChatGPT with a very specific set of instructions, a role, here's your goal, here's your inputs, here's what we're looking for, here's how to analyze and review the data you've been provided, here's some context of how it was gathered, and then ultimately here's the output. Here's what we're looking for. We're looking for a recap, why it changed, what it means, and then some constraints. Once we have that, the next step of this is we have another AI tool designed to be a strategist. In this case, when we tried this and it didn't work out well, where we tried to make the analyst and strategist into one AI and one AI call. And the problem with that is if you give it too many roles and too many tasks simultaneously, things start to get a little convoluted in there. So give it one specific task, one specific operation, and then create a second one, and then feed that into the next one with the context it needs and the instructions it needs. The outputs become a lot more consistent and predictable. So the strategist, though, is designed to take that information, in this case, review it, and then your job is to come up with 3 new content ideas for us to write based on how organic search performed. And then we take that strategist mentality and then social. Okay, come up with 3 new social posts to write. Referral traffic. What are ways to further link building to drive more of this kind of quality traffic? That kind of thing. Channel specific recommendations based on the analyst data that was generated. So it goes through that. It'll identify what channels to process. And then once it's gone through all of those steps, it's identified, okay, the top channels, and it's analyzed those. We got a summary of all of that. The final step is the agent will then call the analyst email report. And this one is designed to take the full report, format it in a way that will work with Gmail because it comes out of Gmail. Um, we also format some additional data that we're going to layer in here. And then the email gets sent off through an Gmail integration, and it comes from an email that I've got set up specifically for this role. And then it'll reply back to the agent saying, I'm done. The agent knows as soon as that happens to shut down, and it's over. So that's really, I mean, it seems like a lot, but if you look at it and compare it to kind of that process document that we had outlined, it is almost word for word, operation line, operation line, operation line. So, and it's fun. I mean, this is the stuff I really enjoy doing, is like getting into the weeds with this and watching it all come alive, because it is cool when it actually starts generating reports like, oh man, I didn't even think of that. Or I would have never dug that deep to figure out that's what the problem was.
Yeah, I love this. I want to touch on a few important points. One is a quick summary, right? We touched on a lot of details in the weeds. Let's go back to 30,000 foot. We're trying to figure out a problem in the business, right? And we have data sources that can give us information about it, but nobody has the time, the bandwidth, or you do have the time, but you rather invest the time in other things. Like Keith said, he used to do it on his own. Uh, what you can do right now is you can go to the data sources, whatever they are. Again, ERP, CRM, accounting system, marketing platforms, third-party solutions like Google Analytics, et cetera, and you can get the data. You then explain to the AI what to look for in the data, or you do some initial math before AI to give you some additional data points. You give it to AI with a set of instructions saying, this is how you look through this data. These are the things you're looking for. These are the cues. This is how you do the math. This is what it may mean. And then you collect all of those analysis and you create a summary report with another AI. And that's another very, very important point that I agree with 100%. You want to be very granular with the tasks you give every AI. Let it focus on something and do that one thing very, very well. And kind of like think of the jack of all trades, but the master of none. You don't want that. You want the masters of every single trade to work on that specific aspect of the work. And then one thing to just put it all together, which that's its special trade. It knows how to put it all together. And so if you think about it in this granular way and you follow the steps of the process, like he said, you will end up with extremely detailed, well analyzed, easy to read report. And easy to read is your choice, right? You will tell it how to write the report. How detailed, how long, in what format. Like one of the things that I'm doing for the workshop that I'm doing this week, it actually generates, I have 3 different agents generating 3 different reports. One of them generates an Excel file with multiple tabs that are basically subsets of the data that are answering different questions. Another one is generating a PowerPoint presentation, and the third one is generating a written report that is the longest, most detailed, and with the most amount of explanations kind of report. But you can build it in whatever way you want. The other thing that I will say that is true as of right now, the day we're recording this, which may not be accurate the time this comes out, but I will say that anyway. Right now, the tool that is the best at formatting really amazing documents, reports, Excel files, PowerPoints, and so on is Claude. It is mind blowingly good at doing that. And if you give it, like Keith said, here's what I want you to do, but you also give it, here's the structure, formatting guidelines, brand guidelines, and so on. It will give you a document you don't have to touch and you can send to your clients. It's that good with
Mhm.
your logo in the header and the footer, with page numbers, with the right colors, with like literally everything you need. And so that's just if you want icing, icing on the cake, to be able to create the reports, just to also look better and not just have the right content. But overall, I absolutely love this process. I think it's brilliant, and I think you touched on a lot of really, really great points. Any final words, kind of summary, words of wisdom after doing this several times?
Yeah, so like 2 points, real quick. The what you mentioned about beautiful documents and all that stuff. The other thing that is kind of an underappreciated uh, flexibility thing that you can do with these make automations is you can create templates and insert variables within those templates. So if I have a PowerPoint where I want the analysis dropped into this specific section, I just have to put two curly cues and name it. And then within make, I can identify that specific text and drop that block right there. So I could drop this number here, and then it's all formatted. Everything looks perfect, exactly how you want it, because it just drops the text into the template. And then the other quick note is this could just be the start of a larger process. So you have three new content ideas that it generates. Use automation to feed those into an editorial calendar, and then when those are fed in, another automation takes over and starts writing out the content and then uploads it directly to your. I mean, you could start tying these things together in ways that you're automating not only the report, but Monday morning, I also have 5 new blog posts that I can review and publish within 10 minutes that are driven by the data that the analytics report's coming from. So that's where this stuff really becomes truly like magical, is when you pull that stuff all together.
Yeah, thank you for bringing this up. What I tell people when you start looking at all these tools today with agents and automations and AI and the combination of all of them is the way you need to think about it is the bottlenecks in your business. What is the biggest bottleneck or bottlenecks that you have right now that is preventing your business from growing? And go and solve that with an AI automation, which will lead to another bottleneck. Now, okay, now I know what to write about. Now I need to write blog posts. Now I know what I'm short of in inventory. How do I make more, like whatever the thing is, you now create another bottleneck, go and solve that. And
Mhm.
in some cases, you get to the points where AI doesn't know how to solve it or automation doesn't know how to solve it. I'll give you a great example. A lot of my clients are in the smart home integration space. They help home builders build smart homes, AV systems, smart curtains, air filters that can send stuff, like all this kind of stuff. You actually need a bunch of people in a house, in a construction site, actually doing the work. AI doesn't know how to solve that, but it knows how to help you how to hire better people. It knows how to help you to build better procedures for these people so they can do more jobs in a set amount of time. It knows how to help you how to make sure that they actually have the right equipment on the truck before they leave the warehouse to go to the job site to make sure they don't have to come back. Like even the stuff that it cannot solve, there's a lot of touch points that AI together with automation can help you solve. So as a very high level summary to this really amazing session, think about bottlenecks in your business and start solving for these one by one with these AI automations. And then you can just grow the throughput of your business without increasing the resources that you have right now.
Mhm.
Keith, this was spectacular as expected. I really love every time I see what you're doing. If people want to work with you, hire you, follow you, learn more about what you do, what are the best ways to do that?
Yeah, best way is through the website. It's just l2-digital.com. You can also find me on LinkedIn. I'd love to connect with whomever. It's just at Keith Moehring on LinkedIn. So those are the two primary ways. So I'd love to connect with whomever.
Awesome. Thank you so much. This was fantastic. Keep on sharing this amazing stuff that you do. I really appreciate you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.